Welcome back. I've got 6 pieces of cedar 2x4 cut to 29.5 inches long. That's going to be the legs for our raised mobile container. So what we want to do now is we want to cut dados in these legs for a cross brace. Now in the previous video I said cut 3 2x4s 30 inches long. I've decided actually to use 1x4s. I think it'll be plenty and I'll save a little bit of material. If you want to use 2x4s, it's fine. I've made a mark on each leg at 10 3/4 inches from the bottom. And by the way, I've used some chalk to mark one end of all 6 legs so I'll know which is the bottom from an orientation standpoint. Now I've set up a stop block so that my first cut bottoms out at 10 3/4 inches. I'm going to make these dados 3/4 of an inch thick to match my 1x4, and I'm going to make the first cut in all 6 boards. Then I'm going to take this first one and I'm going to nibble through it all the way until I get it to where it fits this 1x4. When I do that, once I get to the end, I'm going to take that end cut and I'm going to set up the stop block for the end cut, and then I can just whip through the other 5 without having to stop and measure or anything. So I think I'm pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to turn a couple of things on in here, get a little air moving, and if you'll stay right here, we'll be right back in just a second and we'll cut those dados. Alright, now to set this other stop block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to touch the board right to the tooth. And I'm going to have to set the stop block down on this end, but that's okay. I ran out of room here on my my little crosscut sled. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, same orientation, I'm going to we've cut the bottom part of the dado that defines that dimension. We're going to cut the top part that defines that dimension, and then I can just go nibble out the centers and it'll go really fast. right, now we're going to remove the stop block, and we'll just nibble out the middle of these. Okay, so with our dado set, the next thing that we want to do is just knock these cross pieces down. Eventually, we're going to put a couple of bolts in here, but for right now, I don't want to do that. Just want to get these seated. And then I want to go stand these up on the rolling base. Okay, so now what I've done is I've taken our leg assemblies, which are still not bolted together, and I've inserted them into the dados in the rolling base. I've also cut a board here that is 3/4 of an inch longer on each end than the span of the cross braces on the end. I've centered that and clamped that into place. That also is not attached. I've also used some squaring jigs to make sure that everything is perfectly square, and I've double checked the square of the leg brace, make sure that's all square. So the next thing that you need to do is you need to take a scrap board and cut a 45-degree angle just on the end. And then what you want to do is you want to set that on this cross piece and get it right flush with the edge, right here, flush with the edge, and get the 45-degree angle down flat, and then raise it up so that the top of the board intersects the corner of the 2x4 just like that, and hold it real tight and mark a line right across here on the underside. Because what's going to happen now is we're going to disassemble the legs and we're going to cut a 45 right on that marked line, and then we're going to cut boards that are going to sit here and rest on top of that on all 6 legs, and that's going to form the frame for our V shape on our planter. So I realize it's a little bit of extra work to assemble this, then disassemble it and cut, but that's why we made these legs a little long, so we could get the angle exactly right. And we really didn't want to cut anything bigger than a 45-degree angle. A less would be okay, but anything larger than that's kind of tough on some miter saws, and we want to make this easy to do. So 45 is kind of a natural, and it just works out just right. And you can see the mark that I put on here, and to double check that, you can always use your combination square and lay it up here and double check it against that line, just like that. You can use that to extend the line as well if you want to. But I'm going to now take this down. It'll only take a few minutes to take it apart. And I'm going to take each of the legs over to the miter saw and cut those ends off and make them 45-degree angles down like that. And then get that done, and we're ready to start assembling the V shape for the planter itself. Okay, so now what I've done is I took the leg assemblies apart and I cut those 45 angles on all 6 legs. Now I've clamped everything back into place, and I took some measurements and wound up cutting these boards with a 45 on each end, and on the long side these measure 20 3/8 of an inch, 20 inches plus 3/8. And what these will do is these will sit right up here with the inside edge right here flush with the edge of that board and the top flush with the leg. So we've got a solid flush plane right here. But before I do any of that now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and drill my holes and bolt the cross braces to the legs. I'm going to put 2 bolts in each one. I'm going to go around and get that done. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is this center board, which is dead center between the 2 legs on the braces, and overhanging both ends by 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to screw this board into place on all 3 cross braces. After that's done, then we will get to work on putting these boards into place. They'll go like that, actually. And then that forms the framework for our boards that will lay in here this way and form our actual V-shaped planter and hold the dirt. So I'm going to get these bolts put in, and I'll get these screws put in, and then we'll take a look at the next step. Alright, I've got the cross braces bolted to the legs, and I've got this center support screwed down to the 3 cross braces. Now we're ready to install these angle supports here that are going to hold the boards that form the V-shape container that's going to hold the dirt. We're going to do that in the next video, so I'll look forward to seeing you in that one. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this one.